Thanks for joining us. You're watching the Mike on Mike show, and joining me today is Indra Nicholas. And she has been on the city council for a couple of years now, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah.
Well, 1 year in January.
Right. Okay. And
seems like a couple of years.
Yes, it does. This has been a rough couple of years in Joesphine County politics.
Yes,
for sure. And so now you are going to run for commissioner position 2, right?
I am.
Yeah. Why are you doing that?
A lot of people ask me that. I had not planned on that, but I have a strong faith. And I was sitting there the night before the deadline and looking at the choices and just thinking about how sad our county politics have been lately. And I got the strongest prompting to run. And I thought, I'm just going to open the application and look. I filled it out. Everything fell into place, including I was leaving town the next morning early. I didn't even have time to file. I wouldn't have, but my appointment in Kennewick, where I was going, was canceled, so I didn't have to leave so early. Everything fell into place, and I just was prompted by God to run. I really feel that, and I feel it's because I have the leadership skills, the real world business experience, and public service to be able to be a real leader in our county and bring our county back from this struggle we've had these last 2 years.
What do you think the issues are now, and what are you bringing to the table to do something about that?
Well, I think I just have a lot of real world experience to bring. So I come from a long line of strong women. So I get that from my great aunts. One was a chemical engineer back when women didn't do that. One was a software engineer. And so while I'm known as the ice cream lady now, but I have a rich history of leadership in education. I taught for over 20 years. A leader when I first started in teaching. I taught at an inner city school in Sacramento, Luther Burbank High School. I was a science teacher there, but I always go above and beyond. I'm just not satisfied with just doing the basic to get by. I want to be really great at what I do and the best at what I do. And I'm also very competitive in that way. And so when I started teaching, I became the activities director, and we started a student store that had not been run before. I also was a JV basketball coach. I had a basketball career in high school. I loved doing that. I became advisor to California Scholarship Federation, which was helping get grants for college to minority students. We went to Downeyville. I had several students that received top grants to colleges. We did trips to Monterey. So I've always been very active and involved. I love change. I love challenges. And then after teaching, it's interesting because a lot of people take pride in growing up and being raised here, and they should, and their families are here and they're 5th generation, and that's great. And then we have a lot of retirees who come here because it's a great retirement community. The weather's good, the people are friendly. It's a great community. I chose to come here back when I had my first child and he was 10 months old because we chose this as a place to raise our family, which is a huge decision, to move to know that you're going to have more children and you want to raise your family here. So this community has always been very special and important to me. And so I want to give back. I have the heart of a servant. I was the teacher. I helped prepare students. And then I went into business and I started from the ground up. We were talking about my office downstairs. So 400 square feet. It was just me. and a half-time assistant. And I had a computer, and I had learned a week. I went to a week's training of marketing, never marketed before, and got information on the company, Home Instead Senior Care. It was a franchise, so got really good training there, but just in marketing, no business training on how to run a business, really. That would come later. Came back after a week and said, oh my gosh, what do I do now? And I just hit the road and did all kinds of marketing. And it's more like educating. I don't look at marketing as selling, but educating people. And I think I'm really good at that. I could bring that into the county. It's not selling people on ideas. It's educating people on policy and things. And so I went, marketed, I networked, I ended up buying the franchise in Jackson County. I ended up working in Klamath County as well. So I built that, and being the competitive person I am, every year, convention, I increased my revenue every year, got an award. That was important to me. So I went, after 3 months, I made $10,000 in sales a month. And then at the end, I hit $400,000 a month in sales.
Wow.
I had 250 plus employees, caregivers. So they went out into the homes and took care of seniors in their homes. So they didn't have to go to assisted living or memory care.
So what was that, a situation where they go to a website or something and contact the local affiliate in their area or something? How did that work?
You could do that. We did have a website, and I, of course, kept a local website, but mostly it was word of mouth. So after you get going and are good at what you do, it's word of mouth. So I've never been afraid of competition, because in my view, competition is good. It floats all boats and everyone gets better. Right. And so my outlook was just to be better than the competition, and people would come to you. So after a while, it was word of mouth. But I'd go to hospitals and assisted living and put some ads out and just talking to people. I loved that job. I was the client care coordinator for years until I had enough staff to turn that over. But I would go out and meet the seniors, talk to their families, what their needs are. And I love people. So is that business sort of an alternative to being in a nursing home, perhaps? Yes. I see. Yes. Or an assisted living. It's people that want to stay in their homes as long as they can. So they get a little assistance. You could do it for 3 hours a week. So we had some clients that just needed help shopping. And 3 hours a week, our caregiver would go with them shopping, all the way up to 24-hour care. So there were some that had 24-hour care. I learned in that business about the rules and regulations of our state of Oregon, which are not friendly to business. And you have to learn how to navigate. And there is a way to navigate around that and still get results. You don't have to just fight all the time. You can plan and work around things many times. I've had several businesses in my life, and that's the biggest headache, is dealing with government in one form or another. And although your ability to mitigate that locally is going to be pretty limited, there's you can help in some ways. What ways would those be? You learn how to collaborate with the people making decisions at the state. You learn how to not get around the regulation, but how to work with the regulation in the way that you want to. And then a lot of them are so vague, they don't even know what the regulation is until you do it. And then they
Yes.
come and say, well, what's
Yeah,
this?
you can't do that.
Well, or you can guide it in some way as well.
So, okay, let's say, I mean, there isn't that much here locally that you would have some control over, but what would you advocate for? Because you're one of three, so you can't just put out an edict that you want to do something. But what are the things that people are dealing with in business that you could lighten the load on?
Well, I think, and there's a big difference between being in a private business and running that and being a public servant in the government.
Certainly.
So I've learned a lot about that this last year. And so you can help reduce. So in private business, you deal with the regulations and rules, but you're in charge of your business. So you can act quickly on making decisions and problem solving. And I'm a very good problem solver and decision maker and listening to people. And so you can turn things around quickly if they're going bad. It's interesting. I'm going to go back to, you said maybe the hardest thing is regulations and policy. I find the hardest thing are managing people. That is a difficult task. And I learned over 12 years of business, you work with all kinds of people. Sometimes people just want to vent to you, and you let them vent, and they're good. And sometimes you need to do disciplinary action. So I have years of experience hiring people, letting people go, working with clients, working with my own people I've hired. So that's important. And I'm more of a peacemaker. I'm not a micromanager. I have high expectations for employees. I like to tell you what the vision, what the goal is, and let you work to get there yourself. I'm there to guide you, but I don't feel like I should be micromanaging everything. And then there's a difference when you're in public service, it's so slow. Everything you do is another meeting or a task force or a workshop. And that's been the most frustrating for me, is how slow it goes to make decisions. So something might not be going well, but it takes months.
And you got 5 or 6 people fighting you the whole way. Everybody has their own vision.
Right.
Yeah.
To change it. My philosophy on government, the less the better. Stay out of people's lives. Let people keep their own money. I don't believe it's government's job to collect your money and decide who to dole it out to, because often it's very biased and unfair how that's done, and these people get that, and some people are left out. I'd rather see people keep their own money and government to stay within their bounds. And a lot of times that could be stopping spending in certain areas. But what are the core functions of government? Public safety, that would be a priority.
That's probably number one.
Number one, because without public safety, you have nothing. If people don't feel safe, like we're seeing now, you can't run your business effectively. You can't go to the parks. You can't drive safely down roads. So public safety, to me, is a top priority.
You would think that there would be some sort of a state constitutional barrier for them to inflict something like HB 3115 on us, because they're forcing us to cohabitate with a bunch of people, some of whom are insane, some of whom are drug addicts, and some of whom are criminals, and a small portion are the unfortunate homeless.
Right. And you can do something about that if you're willing to fight it. And I'm a fighter.
Okay. Draw a picture for me there. How do you appropriately fight that situation? Because it hasn't gone well in the past few years. we had the situation where the new city council came in, and I totally agreed with shutting down that J Street site. It was a horrific, it was really bad.
Horrible.
It was a cesspool. And, but immediately there was pushback. Immediately there were lawsuits, which came out of nonprofits. And I have my own suspicions about having perhaps state opposition to what you're doing and them using their little fingers in the nonprofits to, focus these lawsuits on the city and keep them in line. And so how do you fight that situation, or a situation similar to that? Because this is just one example, and ultimately get your way.
I was proud of the council before that fought all the way to the Supreme Court. And it takes time, but they did it, and they didn't back down, and they won in the end.
But unfortunately, people on the state side of things saw what was coming down the pike, and they knew that Grants Pass was going to win that suit.
Right.
They knew it, so they quickly crafted some legislation to keep us under their thumb.
Right. And so you have to perhaps be willing, and again, that's if we serve the public, so it's wouldn't be my decision as a commissioner, but does the public support us in fighting? And so it would be doing things. I think it's unconstitutional for sure. 3115.
Well, I mean, I think we spoke about the priority, which is public safety.
Right.
Why, if that is not a constitutional element in the state, why not? And if they're somehow affecting our public safety here by forcing this upon us, why can't you do something about that?
We'd have to say no. And I don't know if you paid attention to city council, but I was one of the early ones that said no. I voted for J Street to be closed. It's inhumane to allow people to live that way. It's unsafe, it's unhealthy, and in my mind, it's cruel. And so, but I would have closed both camps. The problem was we kept the one camp open because then we were regulating. So in the law, it was cities that choose to regulate. And so if you don't choose to regulate, we don't have that lawsuit. And there were some that...
Wait a minute. So you're suggesting that if we just cut it off totally, that would have been the right solution to make in that circumstance?
That would have been a solution that wouldn't have gotten us the lawsuit.
Wow.
Yes. And I voiced that, but I was the lone one on the council. And I listened to others in our community who agreed with that as well. But keeping the site by the police station open, we were still regulating. So now we're breaking the law, and they can sue us. The ADA.
I mean, how many people understand that about that law?
Not many.
Not many, but I mean, gee, many Christmas, that ought to be shouted from every corner.
Right. And I kept saying, even some counselors disputed that, but our own attorneys said that. And so, and then you do the other argument is they go back into the park. So because of 3115, you still have some, but you can have exclusion zones. And to me, then you deal with the rest. But to me, that would have been the better start than what we ended up having. Was horrible. And they were still in the parks, right? They still went back to the park. So there are things you can do. And I just think sometimes you have to be a leader and make bold decisions. And even if it goes against the state, and maybe they sue you or whatever, but then you stood up
We're
and
getting
you
sued anyway.
Right.
Yeah, so you might as well, fight the top boss.
That's how I feel. Not everyone agrees, but I feel that way.
Yeah, I mean I think it's the biggest problem disrupting the peace of Grants Pass right now.
Mm-hmm.
So then there was the deliberation about who was going to be the facilitator in this whole situation. You had, there was a big push on some contingent in the city council for U-turn/pathways. And then the other entity, which is, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it, out of Roseburg there.
Elk Island.
Elk Island,
Yeah.
right. And so I guess we ultimately went with the Elk Island thing. How do you boil that down, how that went?
What happens in public service when you're one of 8? I mean, you try to talk to people and work with people. And on the council, I always try to be transparent with the public. And so when I have a vote, I explain. Maybe that's why our meetings take longer, but I like the public to know why I'm voting a yes or a no. And so when it became clear that we were not going to shut the camps down, that counselors were for a camp, putting a shelter together, I have to get on board with that so that I can have some kind of say in what that looks like. And at that point, I just wanted the best solution for our community. I'm just always looking for what's best for the community. To me,
it doesn't really seem clear that any of the options were best.
No, and sometimes you have bad and worse, and so you pick bad because worse is worse,
Right?
right?
Yes.
And so there's no good thing, but you have to still make decisions and move forward and make the best decisions you can. And I don't look at public service I don't look at commissioner or city councilor as a position of authority. It's really a responsibility to serve and to listen to the priorities of the people. And public safety for a long time has been number one. And why are they, still roaming our streets and the police are overstretched? And so hoping that when Elk Island opens, people are skeptical, and rightly so about that, but I'm hopeful that that will solve a tiny piece, but an important piece of the puzzle of getting our town back.
So, once you go down this road, it seems like it would be very difficult to go back to the option that you mentioned of just not having anything.
Right. Hopefully that's the case. And we have so many nonprofits. You spoke about the nonprofits. So many in our town. And sadly, not all, a lot do really good work. But sadly, there is an industry of nonprofits making money off, they take taxpayer money, our monies, and spend it. And it's an industry, and we have that here.
They call it the homeless industrial complex for a reason, because that's kind of what it is.
Right. So with all those nonprofits, in my mind, before I got on the city council and learned some more things, but in my mind, why aren't they picking up the pieces of this? Why do taxpayer dollars more through the city have to go to this problem? So initially, I thought the nonprofits would come through with solutions, and that didn't happen.
And there ought to be, if you're handing out, thousands of pounds of goods and food and things of this nature, you ought to be somewhat responsible on the back end of where is all that ultimately going to end up, because a lot of it ends up in, we've seen, along the railroad tracks out there, the Devil Slide area, choked with garbage and needles and pipes and
It's
stuff.
disgusting. And if we're not going to put families first and children first, then we're in a sad situation.
Indeed. So, okay, that's city stuff. So,
well, it is county things too, because the city and county have not been working together, and they've just started.
Why do you think that is? Yeah, I saw there was a meeting today that I watched that Rob Pell was in, and I think I couldn't see. It was the back of his head. Was that that Aaron Kubik in there with him? Oh, okay.
Yes. So I brought that up. I've brought it up several times at council meetings. Why isn't the city working with the county? Like, we need to be working together. So with these new commissioners, evidently they managed to have a meeting, but the county is also responsible for the homeless situation. The city is in the county. I think we forget that a lot.
So what do you envision the county's role in that would be?
I would like to see the shelter, instead of in our urban growth area along Caveman Bridge, where it is at Parker's Place, I would like to see it out a little further from our downtown. And
you would get a whole bunch of bleeding hearts saying that that's too far for them to go to walk to the store or something like that.
Problem solve and think of solutions. There could be a bus route. I mean, there could be transportation for them to that. So there are always solutions to problems. Nothing's perfect, but there are things we can do. And I think having a shelter on our main road is not the greatest location, and I would have liked to not have it there, but that's where it is. That was what we got to work with, so that's what we went with.
That's kind of frustrating, isn't it? You have this is the solution that a committee can come up with. You don't have, there's no king of the county, so you can't have one guy who makes a decision, says, we're going to put them over here or we're not going to put them anywhere or something like that. You have this committee that comes up with it, and there's all kinds of things that come into play there.
Right. If you remember, though, the county came in late with that parcel on N Street. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And then there was an uproar because it's by a neighborhood. That was not a good place. But why didn't they come in earlier with maybe some other land that they had that could be used or given? I think they were just going to give it. So if a nonprofit didn't have to buy the land, they would have more money to actually operate and run the shelter. So the county can really work on the homelessness, and they, for whatever reason, they did turn down emergency. They didn't declare the emergency for the homeless and didn't get grants for that. Like, all around us got money to help with that situation. But
and did they declare it an emergency?
Our commissioners did not, so we could not apply for those emergency funds.
But these other
Yes.
other municipalities
Yes.
did do that?
Yes.
Well, Jiminy Christmas.
Yes. And I don't know, I think sometimes I'm not for every grant or free money that comes along from the state, because
Right.
a lot of times there
It's got
are
strings attached.
Yes, and so you do have to be careful. But in this case, it seemed to work out for some other counties to get a lot of money to help with that. So that might have been helpful.
Yeah, that's a sticky wicket, that one here. So all right. So that's how you think that that the county can assist with that specific problem. What other issues you have any bugaboos?
The county has, as you said, a lot of garbage and homeless people in the forest. I mean, this could be a real fire hazard in the summer, in the dry. And we seem to not have any kind of emergency management director in the county. So I'm not saying that some of the positions that were cut shouldn't have been cut. I don't know all the details, and certainly if someone's not doing their job, they should be cut. But you can't go in with an axe and just chop away. You have to be aware of who can do the job. Who else can do the job? Is someone going to step up? So there are big problems with positions in the county that aren't being filled because there's no one to do them.
Yeah, you know what? I'm always one of these people who's thinking that there's too many people working in the county or in the city or any government entity because they just like to have, you hire more people. That puts me a little higher up, and then, that all works out well for me in the long term in terms of compensation and all these sort of things. And there is a contingent inside government that if you start shaking the apple tree, they get pissed off, and then them and their surrogates start filing, ethics complaints against you, and things of that nature. And so, if you were to try to streamline government, you're going to have to deal with that.
Yes, right.
And is there a way to deal with that that's not going to piss people off? I don't think there is.
I think the main issue is you can go in with a scalpel and not an axe. And you have to plan on when you let go of people, who's going to take those positions over. I agree. Less government is better government. I'm always for that. Streamline, get rid of unnecessary, because government just grows upon itself. And I am not for that. So I'm not saying the former commissioners were wrong in letting people go. I'm not saying that. Probably they were okay, or some needed to. I wasn't in the situation. So maybe they didn't smile
enough, or they had a tone problem, or
and weren't maybe transparent enough. I think people understand when you have to cut, but tell the people why. Don't go under and do it in a secret way.
Well, in 2012, we basically got our funding was cut off, and they had to pare down. Simon was talking about this the other day with me. They dropped from over 400 employees, which is kind of where they're at now, to 278 employees.
Right.
And they didn't have a choice. They had to do that. And I think that the notion inside government is, if we have a little bit more money, we can hire some more people. And, ultimately, that means more people have to pay more taxes to support bigger government. That's just math.
Right. And I am not for that. And sometimes you do have to cut if you don't have the money. And even if you have the money, sometimes you want to cut to streamline services and make things better. Our citizens in Joesphine County are struggling. They're struggling to make bills. They're struggling to pay for services. It's hard out there. And for business people too. You can see a lot of buildings are empty. It's hard to make a living now for business. So our government needs to do whatever it can to get rid of barriers for people to live and maintain a business, operate a business.
And it's not just high now. These aren't static things. These are trends. In the past, 10 years, my costs of running my business have gone up dramatically.
Right.
Power costs more, insurance costs more, taxes cost more, everything.
Right.
And so I don't have a choice. People get sick of hearing me talk about this because I bring it up almost during every conversation. It's a trend. It's an upward trend.
Right.
And so I don't have the luxury of looking at my static costs now and go, I'm fine. I have to go, am I going to be fine in 5 years?
Right. And nothing goes down. That's what I don't get. Nothing ever goes down. So we have a new tax, or I know the animal shelter putting that on the ballot for people to vote, 16 cents. I would be for a levy on the ballot, because the animal shelter does need it, and people do care about animals. It was 11 cents. Why not keep it at 11 or bring it down to 10? Can we get by with 10 cents? I would try to make it lower if we can.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
I know, but why
don't
not?
think so.
Why not?
I know, but
10 cents would pass on the levy, right?
It might.
People would say, oh, it's a cent less, rather than 16 and everyone say, no, we're not going to do it.
But that's not how it works.
It could work.
Yeah.
Could work.
It could.
Yeah, I was paying 11 cents, now it's 10. Okay, I'm for that.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Why not?
I know. I'm not disagreeing with you that it would that's preferable. I'm just saying that it doesn't work that way. It does not in my life experience.
Well, and that's why people are so averse to any tax that comes up, particularly in our conservative county, because they know it's never going to go away and it's never going to get less. If people knew it could go away or get less, maybe we would do more levies for better things. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I moved here for a number of reasons, not the least of which I was leaving California, which I thought, man, things are just getting crazy here. I got to get out of here. And get to a place where I can have a more predictable cost of living, and young people coming up in this, looking at the prospect of, the mid bottom is 300,000 at this point. I remember when I was a young man and the homes first hit 100,000, I thought, oh my God. That's insane. How am I going to do that?
It's too hard for young people to live here. I feel so bad that they have to live together or live with their parents. The price of housing is insane. And I just think, why can't we have bold ideas on how to build less expensive homes? Do you know in North
I'm totally
Carolina,
with you on that.
The Amish, remember they had that terrible flooding, and the Amish came in and in 48 hours built how many? 24, a dozen homes in 48 hours that people could live in. And I'm not saying we get the Amish here, but why can't we build small working class homes again? That people can afford? They're starter homes. We don't have starter homes anymore.
No, that's right. You get a McMansion.
Right.
Yeah.
That no one can afford.
Right. I agree. This is something, there's I watch a lot of YouTube on this topic, and I think that you could have much less expensive homes for people. That would bring a ton of jobs in, because if you freed up some of this federal land that we have in the county, almost 70% of this county is owned by either the state or the feds. And if they freed up some of that, you could build on it. If they acquiesced to cutting timber again, and you cut it to the degree that it should be cut, sustainable harvest, you'd have very, very cheap framing lumber, and this would bring a lot of jobs in both the production of the lumber and the building of the homes, and underground work and all kinds of things that it would bring a lot to the community. But there are entities that don't want that to happen, and they are the ones who are in charge. So what do you do with that? What's the workaround with that one?
By entities, are you talking about the state?
Yeah, basically the state is, environmentalists, are, that thinking is dominant in state government.
While that's true, the state is also moving towards more high density homes. I mean, we want to keep the character of our town, so I'm not for like high density in our downtown or city. That would change the whole culture.
You could do that sort of thing.
You could rurally, and I think the state is at a place where we could perhaps do that. They want more housing. There are more housing options available. And so if we can clear a path for the land, and it's going to be county land probably, or on the urban growth boundary of the city to build, we can do that. I look at also lower cost alternatives. There are some really nice manufactured home areas, Rogley Estates, beautiful. People with money go live there and retire. Why can't we do some of these lower cost in an area? So
I don't know. I think a lot of it has to do with the availability of space to put that, and government will to facilitate it.
Right, and we definitely have to have the will to do it, but also we want responsible growth, right? We want to maintain the character of our town and our quality of living.
But we have to have something for young people coming up here, otherwise they're just going to leave like they do now.
Yes, and we have to attract living wage businesses. We're right on I-5. We just got money for the infrastructure for the industrial park. We should be attracting light manufacturing work, some kind of industry into our town. But for some reason, we're not, or we haven't been doing that.
Yeah, well, there's going to be an expansion in the industrial park over here shortly, and hopefully that will help matters out in that department. But businesses have to want to be here.
Right. We have to maybe provide incentives for business to come. If we have bare land or empty buildings that aren't producing revenue, then it makes sense to give an incentive that will get some revenue down the line, at least. Yeah,
because you get a little out of pocket now and you get it back later.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you help people. And my kids are all out of state now, but I don't want them to be out of state. We do.
Mine's out of the country.
Oh, yeah. It's hard. We need to keep our kids here, or at least they have the option to stay here if they want to stay here. But they're not going to stay here if they can't afford to buy a home, if they can't afford, if they can't get a good job, a living wage job. So we really have some work to do.
Yeah, and that's so getting back to, if you wanted to communicate a platform that you have, what would that be?
My platform would be government providing the core services. So we talked about public safety being number one. Infrastructure is a core service that government needs to provide. And then our local economy. We need to help our businesses to grow and thrive. And so I think just the basics, core services, is what government should be doing. And we talked about, we have a lot of government employees. When we needed to lay off in 2012, well, the largest expense to a business or government are its employees. So when you want to streamline how things work, that's what you're going to look at first.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then it's just the job of doing that and coming out on the other side and not getting recalled for it.
I get along with almost everyone I meet. I seem easy and I don't know, maybe soft as some, but
you're a hard ass then,
I'm
right?
strong on the inside. I am. I want results. I'm so competitive. And I'm a fighter. And so I want what's best for our community. I'm not in it for myself, not in it to have authority or make money. I'm really in it for the betterment of our community. I really care about our community, and I think we need some help. And I have worked with a wide variety of people. I get along with everyone, and I'm not, people think because you talk to someone with a different view, you're compromising your values or your core. But that doesn't have to be the case. I have strong core conservative values, limited government, freedom, gun rights. I'm just super conservative. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to talk with someone who's on the left or liberal. Right. Because one, we can't be in our echo chamber. We need debate.
Yeah,
we need to hear different viewpoints, because sometimes it changes our thought process for the better.
Right.
And that doesn't mean we're giving up our core beliefs or our values. Faith, I have a strong faith. Family, I believe in strong families build strong communities. And freedom. Like, don't take away my freedom. Property rights. We should be able to do what we want with our property. That's why, for me, property taxes are so difficult, because you never own your property.
Yeah, not outright.
No. And people that have worked all their life, paid off their mortgage, they're maybe on a low fixed income, and they're paying half their check or more to keep their house is wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But then you come up against, I mean, this is how we have funded it. Kind of makes you wonder what they did before there were property taxes. Because, I mean, certainly there was a point in American history where you weren't paying property taxes, basically. And now you do, and that's how services are funded. So you would have to come up with a means of funding it in another way, or some ray gun that you could point at people and make them be moral human beings and good to one another, so you didn't need some of those services.
Right.
And that's, you know.
And we need, I'm not saying we don't need any property tax. I mean, we need money to run those core services that we talked about. But when you look at your property tax bill, how much goes to the schools?
Yeah, it's insane.
Oh my gosh. And they're failing.
And the product is garbage.
They've completely failed. I'm totally for school choice. Competition, again, competition is good.
Right.
It makes people and businesses and organizations better. And so we pay a lot to things we're not even getting.
Yeah, and that's a state issue. You know, most of the property tax that you're paying is going to the state. There's a very small portion of it that is staying local.
Right. And what's the state spending it on? Things we don't even want.
That's one of my favorite phrases is they just basically shoot your money out of a cannon. And I don't know what you do about that, because you were talking about how logistically difficult it is to get anything done here on a local level. Could you imagine on the state level? That's got to be at least equally bad.
Right. And we work hard every year. So I've been involved with the Republican Party for years, 10 years, actively involved in campaigns, in helping people get elected, in running, the office and doing events, actively involved. And we've done a good job. There are some issues now with the party that I just really hope can work themselves out. Some big disappointments going on there. But that's how I got involved in politics. And at first it was just supporting candidates and supporting measures. And then I was asked to run for the RCC board, which no one really pays attention to that. But I'm one of 7, and I'm the only true conservative on there. So we deal a lot with policy. Sometimes I'm the only no vote on a policy because I'm not for all the DEI stuff and things like that. I think everything should be on merit and not special characteristics of your skin color or anything like that. So, but the board is so pleasant. The people, we don't fight, we don't argue, and they tell me I speak up. I stand up for Joesphine County, and when they put the bond on, I'm telling them people are struggling. This is not going to go over in Joesphine County, and here's why. So I stand up and speak.
So when you refer to a bond, what bond is that?
It was for some new buildings. It was last November, and it failed. And it's because we're in Joesphine County.
Right, yes.
And people will support Rowe Community College. It's got a lot of history here, but it was just too much. It was asking too much. But my board members that don't always agree with me, they still understand and respect that I am standing up for my constituents. And I really appreciate that. So you can have totally different viewpoints, and you can work together, and you can respect people as people and not just discount them because they don't believe what you believe. And I think we have a lot of that divisiveness going on. And I really feel like I could help bridge the gap and really bring unity within our community. I've never seen it so bad. Never. People, and it's somewhat nationwide, but it's really bad within our community. And I think we can have dialogue and converse and respect people as people without being hateful. And hopefully lead with that. Lead by example. Not everyone can do that, obviously, and that's okay, but we really have to bring our community together, I think.
Yep. Well, is there anything else you want to throw in to tie a bow on it?
I just want to throw in that I'm a strong leader. I have strong convictions with my core conservative values. I have the experience in the party. I've been on the RCC board. I've been a city councilor, so I've learned a lot this past year, and I'll continue to learn through the rest of this year about how to work in government. It is different than working in the private sector, but I also have that many years of private sector experience that I can bring into government too, that I think would be very helpful. How to build teams. The county administration and the workers, the morale, right, got so low. But there are ways to help with that and build teams and motivate people. Even as some are being laid off, you can motivate and build teams. And I'm good at that. I'm good financially. I've balanced budgets, big budgets. I've made payroll. I know the struggles of people starting businesses from scratch and trying to operate and grow. And so I can help in that sector as well. And I've managed people. I get along with a diverse range of people, and I love working with people. I'm a good listener. Transparency is so important. I think that was one of the major downfalls of the former commissioners, was just what they were doing was probably okay. I don't know, but it just didn't look right. It wasn't as transparent as it should have been. And so that is really important to me. And just being honest with people, talking and being honest, having this honest conversation about how you feel, how I feel, how we should go forward. Sometimes you do have to compromise, but you never have to compromise on your values. So I would just ask people to vote for me.
All right. Well, you'll get the opportunity on, what is it, May 19th?
Yes.
I keep forgetting the exact date of that, but May 19th, and running for commissioner, position 2. Got a few people in that field, and several on the other side in position 1 as well. We'll be hearing from some of those people here in the next couple of weeks.
I'm going to be having some meet and greets at my ice cream shop.
Oh, yeah. I saw that on Facebook.
So I really hope people will come by, and I would like to hear from the public.
And that's on Thursday afternoons. Is that not right?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
And is there a definite time there, or is
4
it
to 6?
4 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And have some ice cream.
So good. Even if I say so myself.
All right. Did you make it yourself?
We do make it. So that's another business I started from scratch, from zero, with a vision and a plan. You can get a lot done.
All right. Well, thanks, Indra.
Thank you for having me.
Yep.